Hello, dear brothers and sisters. Thank you for joining Mother and Refuge of the End Times. We would like to share with you an article written for the Spanish website Forums of the Virgin Mary. The Hidden Face of the UN, the United Nations operation to change the world in 2030. John Paul II's envoy, who discovered the UN's long-term plan, has died. On May 3, 2022, Monsignor Michael Schuyens died at the age of 92. This name will mean nothing to many, but Bishop Schuyens was an important personality within the Church. He was a member of 3 pontifical academies, the one for social sciences, the St. Thomas Aquinas Academy, and the one for life. Of Belgian origin, he obtained several doctorates and worked especially in the areas of philosophy, demography, and theology. He was a professor at various universities, including that of Leuven, and exercised his parish ministry in Brazil and Belgium. He has written hundreds of articles and dozens of books, but his most important work was one that had John Paul II as an actor, both agreeing that Schuyens sit in the UN and tell the pontiff what happens there. From this experience came the book The Hidden Face of the United Nations, where he recounts how the UN is in a process of changing the world within its own dynamics, and is not a mere coordinating institution of what the nations that constitute it think. Here we will talk about the things that do not come to light about the UN that Monsignor Schuyens found in his research on the UN, so that you can form an opinion about this institution. It is not entirely clear if it was the Pope who asked Father Schuyens to sit in the UN to investigate what was happening inside, or if it came from him, but how important it was that he did so with the consent of the papal power. From this research emerged a book published in Europe, The Hidden Face of the United Nations. What this Monsignor found is especially important today, because what was once a noble institution of coordination between nations today shows another reality, because it is operating a project of its own to form a new world order based on an anti-Christian vision of the new rights of man, on the submission of nations and on the preeminence of ecology over man. What Father Schuyens found has been confirmed in recent times, with the primacy, for example, of the World Health Organization over the competent bodies in each country lately. Now, it is legitimate to ask how an organization that in theory responds to the collegiate of all nations of the world is having this independence of its own project. From the human point of view, the UN is a caste of people who are not democratically elected by any vote. Most of them are not appointed by governments, but are appointed by their consensus, which basically means that it is the result of lobbying by the UN bureaucracy. The officials subcontract to external experts. Eventually they'll become UN officials. Then they cease to be UN officials and return to their work as advisors. And later on they will be officials again, and thus in a permanent circulation of the same ideologically related people. The secret is in how they handle consensus. Consensus is obtained in international assemblies thanks to non-governmental organizations that do a good job of lobbying. These NGOs are financed by powerful private foundations, global corporations, international pharmaceutical groups, etc. And then it is operated at the level of each country by a powerful network of ideologically aligned partners who expand its influence and the application of its rules. Women's movements, youth organizations, development NGOs, charities, local organizations, media, health institutions, etc. And so together, the UN bureaucrats plus the NGOs, financed by large global private groups and legitimized by the UN itself, pressure national governments in various ways to align themselves with the organization's proposals. They do this by allocating money to plans they are interested in and restricting them to those they are not interested in. And they work so that their initiatives are incorporated into national legislation. Re-engineering is advancing rapidly, and the UN is operating a master plan whose goal is the year 2030. It is based on 4 agendas. The population agenda, which introduces population control and reduction. The reproductive health agenda, which recommends contraception, abortion, and sterilization. The sexual diversity agenda, which promotes gender ideology. And the ecological agenda, which promotes the concept of the fight against climate change and ecological world governance. Everything that happens in the countries around these 4 agendas is ideologically pressured by the UN and leveraged by donations from the UN itself. and from private foundations, recommended by the officials of the World Organization. A central point is the new rights that are added to the Declaration of Human Rights of 1948. These rights of the 1948 Declaration included the right to life, the validation that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity, that they are free to associate, to choose the political regime that governs them, to organize in unions, to find a family, to adhere to a religion, etc. But Father Chuyens documented that the UN officials are pushing for new rights of man to be adopted, including those that the author sees as regrouped around sexual rights. What they are about is that the differences in roles between men and women in society are not natural but cultural, that everyone is free to choose their sex or change it, which includes non-heterosexual marriage and the right to adoption, the promotion of single-parent and same-sex family models, legalized and easy access to contraception and abortion, compulsory sex education for adolescents and children removed from parental control. These new rights in turn drive the legitimation of euthanasia, the abolition of parental supervision of children, pedophilia, divorce, and also several forms of prostitution. Another innovation is that these new rights are based on the idea that man is subject to the land and not on the traditional Christian claim that the land is subject to man. The UN agenda implies that the rights of Mother Earth are more important than the rights of these ephemeral beings called men, and that is why they propose the restriction of human expansion, because it is detrimental to the planet. The UN Earth Charter requires man to recognize not only the rights of the Earth in general, but also the rights of living beings, especially animals, within which man is just one more and the biggest predator. Father Chuyens says that this means to defy the earth and desacralize man. He conceives of man only as the product of a material evolution that must submit to the imperatives of the world that surrounds him, nature and ecology. And it promotes that man must accept no longer being the center of the world. According to this interpretation of nature and man, the natural law is no longer that which is written in the heart and in the intelligence of man, but rather it is the implacable and violent law that nature imposes on man. Central to this approach are the New Age ecologists, who present the human population as predators, which must be restricted for sustainable development. And this sustainable development is the basis of the UN 2030 agenda, whose very obvious goal is to advance towards a world government. For this, he has to weaken the family and the nations from a position of power. That is why, since 2000, the position of the Special Representative of the Secretary-General of the UN was created, who is in charge of the protection of human rights defenders, with what is sought to legally penalize those who violate the fulfillment of the new rights, including those of the land. So the next step is to encourage nations to make laws to protect the new rights. The UN bureaucrats use the term responsibility sharing, but it is a new expression that hides something else behind it. It indicates that the UN is no longer satisfied with playing a secondary role in the world. Father Chuyens maintains that the UN's effort is to become a true breeding ground for a world government through a concentration of power unprecedented in history, that it would be in a position of hierarchy superior to the nations, and that it would leave governments and parliaments in a residual role. Everything that is happening implies that the UN intends to place itself at the center of the world power and equip itself little by little with all the control instruments it needs to exercise what it believes is its mission in the new millennium. It has even ventured into the creation of a world religion to obtain a new planetary ethic. This new religion would be pantheistic and encompass all living beings with Gaia as the center. This is what we wanted to tell you about what Father Chuyens found in the UN, where a powerful force acts towards the concentration of power that appears to have its own engine to redesign the world. Immaculate Heart of Mary, pray for us. Thank you for watching Mother and Refuge of the End Times.